My parents left me out of the will after I paid their bills for 10 years, then Mom texted, "The mortgage is due," like nothing happened. I replied, with 8 words that shut everything down. I'm Ariana, 32 years old, a financial manager for an investment firm in Portland. I live alone in a small apartment near Forest Park. Simple but tidy, just like my personality. Meticulous, straightforward, and always responsible, especially when it comes to family. Since graduating college, I've pretty much carried the weight for my parents. They live in a 2-story house in Salem where I grew up. Even though their jobs never brought in much money, I never let them go without. When my mom needed back surgery, I covered the entire medical bill. When the house started falling apart because of rotten pipes, I hired workers and paid over $8,000 myself. Every month, I consistently sent $1.20 to help cover their mortgage and living expenses. First, I thought it was just the right thing to do, kids helping their parents when needed. But over time, I started noticing something I had tried to ignore. My younger brother, Brandon, is 4 years younger than me. No degree, no stable job, never financially independent. While I was working 10-hour days, Brandon stayed home watching TV, scrolling his phone, then driving out with friends in the evening. Some months, Mom would call complaining, "Brandon's wallet got stolen. Can you send extra money?" I never questioned it, just sent more like a robot. But funny thing, his wallet seemed to get stolen at least once every year. By the 4th time, I found it more laughable than pitiful. I never once saw Brandon seriously hold a job. When he was 25, he opened a vintage clothing store. I invested the initial $10,000 and even helped him draft the business plan. A year later, the shop shut down and all he said was, "Guess I'm not cut out to be a business owner." After that, he moved back in with our parents, living rent-free like it was the most natural thing in the world. Still, I never heard a single complaint from Mom and Dad. Every time I called, Mom would speak softly. "He's trying. He just needs more time." More time? He was 28. I had spent my entire youth working, saving, providing for the family. Meanwhile, Brandon just needed more time? I started feeling worn out. After long stressful days, I would sit alone in my apartment, staring at the automatic transfer reminders on my phone with a heavy heart. It wasn't the money I regretted. It was the effort. The weekends, I skipped out on fun with friends just to fix their roof, while Brandon stayed in his room playing video games. The birthdays where it was just me, a cake I bought myself, and a lonely candle, while Brandon got backyard barbecue parties even though he did nothing all year. I kept telling myself, they don't mean it, but deep down, I knew they favored him. Brandon was the baby boy, the one Mom always spoke to with the softest voice, while I was just his sister, the responsible one. Whenever I got tired and blurted out, "Mom, I need some care too," she would reply, "You're strong, Ariana. You don't need anyone to worry about you." Yes, I didn't need anyone to worry about me, but that didn't mean I deserved to be overlooked. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like a shadow standing behind the family, only existing when they needed money, repairs, or someone to clean up the mess. As for care, gratitude, or even just a hug, I wasn't sure when those disappeared. And I kept sending money, kept getting half-hearted thank you texts, kept staying silent when I saw Brandon flaunting a new pair of designer shoes on Instagram with the caption "gifted by someone special." Someone special? Was that someone me? I thought I had gotten used to it, but really, I was just bottling it up. And then one day, a random seemingly harmless moment shattered it all. A truth I never saw coming, hidden behind sweet words and fake responsibilities, forced me to stand up and finally ask, what am I to this family? I didn't know if the pain or the anger would hit me harder, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. It happened on a gray, damp Saturday afternoon, as if the weather itself was warning me. I drove from Portland back to Salem to help my parents with some bank paperwork. They said they needed me to review some mortgage loan documents. I was so used to signing or representing them legally that I didn't think twice. Mom greeted me at the door with a glass of iced tea, smiling lightly and pointing to a stack of papers on the living room table. "Can you look at these for me, honey? I can't make sense of them," she said, like always, trusting and oblivious. I sat down, pulled out my laptop, and opened the thick folder neatly clipped together. Most of it was bank forms, utility bills, old tax documents, but then there was another thinner stack marked with a blue sticker. Typed neatly on the cover, "Last Will and Testament, Stephen and Marlene Bennett." I froze. A will? Curiosity or maybe survival instinct made me open it. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe a line acknowledging all my quiet sacrifices. Maybe some tiny promise of fairness, but what I saw was brutally cold. "We leave all assets including the house in Salem, savings accounts, life insurance, and land rights to our son, Brandon Bennett." I read the line over and over, hoping my eyes were wrong. But no, my name wasn't mentioned once, Not even a small share. Not even a note of acknowledgement, except one lonely line at the end. We love both our children equally, but believe this is necessary for the family stability. Love equally? They showed their love by letting me pay their bills while Brandon got everything? I felt a chill down my spine. The room seemed to tilt. All those years of working myself into exhaustion, sleepless nights worrying about mom's health, cutting back on my own needs to send money home, all erased with one line saying, necessary. They didn't see me. They only saw a daughter who could carry burdens, so they piled everything onto me. I sat there for a long time, frozen, until Mom's voice called out from the kitchen. Ariana, did you find the bank document? I stood up, grabbed the will, and walked straight into the kitchen. She was rinsing vegetables, hands trembling slightly from the cold water. I held up the papers at her eye level. When did you write this? Mom glanced over, and I caught the flicker of panic in her eyes, but she quickly masked it, replying, oh, that it's been a while. Your father and I just wanted to have everything settled. I thought you already knew. I didn't answer. She put down the vegetables, wiped her hands, and spoke softer. Ariana, you have a stable career, your own home, a good job. Brandon, he's still struggling. We just want to help him get on his feet. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't hold it in anymore. His feet. He doesn't even need to stand up, Mom. You're handing him the whole house to lie on. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up my hand. Don't I get it? Perfectly clear now. I walked out of the kitchen toward the front door. Dad was outside changing a porch light, looked up, and smiled. Leaving already? Stay for dinner. I stared at him for a long moment, then held up the papers. Did you sign that? He followed my hand, his face freezing. Yeah, I did, but that was no need to explain. I read it. It's crystal clear. I stepped down the porch, my voice low. I came to help you with paperwork. Now I see where I stand. Joe Yen. Ariana, don't misunderstand. He called after me. I turned around and looked my father straight in the eye. I'm not misunderstanding anything. I understand it perfectly. Then I got into my car and shut the door. The engine started, but inside, I felt frozen. Turns out, sometimes you don't become an outsider because you're pushed away. You become an outsider the moment you stay silent for too long. I got back to Portland around 9 p.m. just as the rain began to fall. Everything inside me felt numb. No raindrop could match the coldness of feeling cast out of your own family. I sat in the car for a long while, gripping the steering wheel. I should have been angry, should have cried, should have screamed, but all I felt was emptiness. The next morning, I couldn't focus on anything. The image of the will, the phrase, believe this is necessary, and my mother's guilty smile kept replaying in my head. By midday, I decided to call my mother. I couldn't just let it all pass like I was some lost guest in their family. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. Ariana, I was just about to call you. Mom, I need to talk. Seriously, no sugarcoating. There was a pause, then a heavy sigh. All right, go ahead. I forced my voice to stay calm. Why? Why leave everything to Brandon? Were you planning to wait until I was completely drained before telling me the truth? Mom answered slowly. Caution, it's not what you think. Your father and I thought about it for a long time. You're stable. You're strong, independent. Brandon, he needs help. Let out a bitter laugh. Help? Mom, Brandon doesn't need help. He needs a wake-up call. He lives like the world owes him everything. Mom's voice grew sharper. He's your brother, Oriana. Don't talk about him that way. I cut her off. No, he's the one who hasn't earned a dime in 10 years, but still gets called poor thing. And me? Every time I sent money, all I got was, thank you. I'll pay you back soon. But you know what? Not once did you ever pay me back because you knew I wouldn't ask. I heard her breathing heavily on the other end. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it hurt you this much. You didn't think. That's the problem, Mom. No one in this family ever thought about me. I was the convenient one. When the roof leaked, call Ariana. When the electric bill was overdue, call Oriana. When Brandon's store failed, who covered it? Ariana. But when it came time to share assets, oh, right. She's stable enough. I heard her voice tremble. Do you know why we did it that way? I stayed silent. Because I was afraid you'd leave us. I was afraid if we gave you part of it, Brandon would resent us and you'd never come back. You were already living far away. So I chose to keep Brandon close, even knowing it wasn't fair. I gripped the phone tighter. You didn't lose me because I moved away. You lost me because you never really held on to me. She sobbed. I'm sorry, Ariana. I just wanted to keep the peace by erasing me from the family, by turning me into a walking wallet. I didn't wait for her reply. Do you know I stayed up at night worrying you wouldn't have enough for retirement? I even looked into buying extra insurance for both of you. But now, I think Brandon will take care of that since the house and the future belong to him. I hung up. My heart was pounding, my hands ice cold. I thought I would feel relief, but instead, I felt sadness so deep it made it hard to breathe. Sadness that even as an adult, I still clung to the hope that my parents would treat me fairly. Sadness that the one they always coddled had never once stood up for anyone but himself. I opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and canceled the automatic transfers to my parents. I sat there staring at the screen for a while, then opened a new Excel sheet. I started listing every amount I had sent them over the past 7 years. Not to demand it back, but to remind myself I had done enough. More than enough. I'm not heartless, but I refuse to keep being the only one who cares in a one-sided relationship. And if they believe Brandon deserves everything, then now they'll live with that choice without me around to clean up the mess. A week after that final call with Mom, I still hadn't heard a word from them. Good. I needed space to breathe, to get used to the feeling of no longer being tied down by invisible expectations and unwanted obligations. But that silence didn't last long. On Monday morning, as I was getting ready for a regional director meeting, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Elia, the property tax is coming due. Can you front it like always?" No hello. No how are you? Just another cold, familiar request. I stared at the screen, feeling a bitter mix of sadness and amusement. They really thought I was still the same old Oriana, the one who would open her wallet no matter how hurt she was? I typed back without hesitation. "I think Brandon can handle it. The house belongs to him now." Less than 5 minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring. She called again, then sent a text. "Ariana, don't do this. You know we don't have enough. Brandon's still looking for a job. Don't let a small misunderstanding tear the family apart." Small misunderstanding? I bit my lip, steadying myself, then replied, "Mom, this isn't a misunderstanding. You and Dad made a clear decision. I'm just respecting it. If Brandon deserves everything, then he can start taking responsibility too." This time, it wasn't until evening that I got a response from Brandon. "Uh-huh. Are you really going to abandon them over a piece of paper?" I almost laughed. A piece of paper? That was the cold verdict they handed me after years of sacrifice. I didn't reply immediately. I waited until after work, then wrote, "It's not about the paper. It's about never truly being part of the family. Now at least, I'm free." Brandon replied so fast it was obvious he'd been waiting. "You're so selfish. Family is about getting through hard times together." I typed each word like carving it in stone. Family is about sharing, not exploiting. I've carried everything alone for too long. Now it's your turn to find out what hard times really mean. I didn't get another text from Brandon that night, but I knew it wasn't over. 3 days later, I received an email from the bank. My secondary account in Salem, the one my parents had access to, had an attempted withdrawal that exceeded the limit. I immediately called the bank to close the account and revoked all access. I had originally created that account to make it easier to support them every month. Now there was no reason for it to exist. Right after I finished, Dad's number popped up on my phone. I didn't answer. The text came next. "You really want us to lose the house? You won't be able to live with yourself." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back slowly. "No one's losing anything, Dad. Now you'll just have to take care of it yourselves. I'm not a bank, and I'm no longer the daughter forced to choose between love and distorted gratitude." The final text of the day came from Mom. A short, heavy message. "We're disappointed in you." I took a deep breath, and I locked my phone. For the first time in years, I chose to stand by myself. Not out of duty, not out of guilt, not for anyone else. I used to think cutting ties would leave me feeling empty, but it didn't. I felt free. It's not that I stopped loving them. It's that I finally loved myself enough not to let anyone treat me like I didn't matter. 3 days after cutting all contact and closing the secondary bank account, my apartment doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. Before I could even check the peephole, the knocking started loud, urgent, like a debt collector, not a family visit. I looked through the lens. It was my mom. Standing next to her, my dad, and, no surprise, Brandon too, hands stuffed in his pockets, face twisted like he was the one betrayed. I stood still, heart pounding. They had come all the way here. No call, no warning. They showed up like I owed them something. I didn't open the door, but when Mom started speaking through the gap, her voice dripping with her usual dramatics, I knew they wouldn't leave quietly. "Ariana, I know you're in there. I don't want to make a scene, but you're pushing this family to the edge." I called back, firm and clear. "Mom, this isn't the time or the place. I don't want to talk right now. Please leave." Dad spoke up, his voice heavy, like he'd climbed a mountain. "Are you really going to ignore your parents after everything we've done for you?" I swallowed my anger, keeping my tone even. "You chose Brandon, and now I'm choosing myself." Mom pounded harder on the door, dropping any pretense. "Don't be so selfish. Family is about carrying the load together, Ariana. Weren't you always the thoughtful one? I opened the door not to argue. I was just too tired of hiding. They stood there, the three of them, lined up neatly at my doorstep. Mom, crossing her arms with a disappointed glare. Dad, lowering his head like he was plotting his next move. And Brandon, smirking, like he was watching a cheap drama. I folded my arms and blocked the entrance. All right, since you went through all the trouble, listen carefully. Mom jumped in before I could finish. Oh, you listen. Your father's blood pressure is bad. The house needs plumbing repairs. Brandon's applying for jobs everywhere, and you just need to help for a few more months. Just a few months. I nodded slowly. Just like the few months last year or the year before or when you said Brandon would be independent by 25? He's 28 now, Mom. Still freeloading and still the one who needs help. Brandon snapped. I never asked you to do anything. Mom and Dad made those decisions. It wasn't me. I stared him down. No. You didn't have to ask because you knew someone else would carry the burden for you. Dad stepped forward. Ariana, you're acting like a stranger. When families have problems, they sit down and work it out. You can't throw it all away over a will. I took a half a step back, breathing deeply. I'm not throwing anything away. The will ended it already. I'm just refusing to keep being the only one pouring money and energy into a so-called family that only sees me when they need saving. Mom grabbed my sleeve, eyes brimming with tears. You're my daughter, Ariana. I don't want to lose you over money. I gently but firmly pulled away. You didn't lose me over money. You lost me when you chose Brandon, the one who never took responsibility to entrust the whole future to. While I, the one who carried the weight for 10 years, was erased from the picture. I looked each of them in the eye, my voice low. I was never really family to you. I was just a walking wallet. Brandon's face flushed as he turned away. Mom stood frozen. Dad clenched his jaw like he was swallowing glass. I stepped back into my apartment, holding the door open. If any of you still think I'm going to change my mind, you can leave now. I'm no longer your silent shadow. I closed the door gently this time. No slamming. No goodbye. The silence was the perfect ending. I leaned against the door, my hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, but because I knew I had just cut loose something that had bound me my entire life. A guilt masquerading as family love. I thought the confrontation at my doorstep would be the end, that they would back off, lick their wounds in pride, maybe even reflect a little. But I had given them too much credit. Early one morning, as I was sipping coffee, a text from Madison, my college best friend now working as a lawyer in Seattle, popped up. Are you okay? I just saw something your mom posted on Facebook. I frowned, opened my phone, and logged into my old account that I kept just to stay in touch with a few friends. My mother's page had a post shared over 40 times. It's heartbreaking as parents to see your child turn their back on you over money. We sacrificed our whole lives for her. And now, when we need her the most, she coldly cuts us off. Our home is at risk of foreclosure, but she's too busy living her fancy life to care. I read it over and over, each word heavier than the last. The comments were worse. Kids these days have no gratitude. If my child did that, it would break my heart. How could someone be so ungrateful with parents like that? Brendan had shared it too, adding his own comment. Family is about love, not calculations. I'm not perfect, but I never turned my back when they needed me. And then Dad posted a short, passive-aggressive status tagging me directly. Some people think success means forgetting where they came from. It's only when we grow old and weak that we realize not every child we raised is truly ours. I put my phone down on the table. After a long moment, I let out a dry laugh. They had made me the villain, the ungrateful daughter who threw her parents onto the street. None of the dozens of commenters knew I had kept that house standing for the last decade with my own sacrifices. I opened my laptop, logged into Facebook, hands trembling slightly, but my eyes clear. If they had chosen to tell only half the story, then I would tell the part they left out, the part I had been silent about all my youth. I started typing. I never thought I'd post something like this, but it seems my family has chosen to tell only half the story and cast me as the villain. I'm the eldest daughter of Stephen and Marlene Bennett. I've been financially supporting my parents since I was 23, right after getting my first paycheck. I covered mortgage debts, hospital bills, utilities, and home repairs. I never asked for praise. I did it because I believed that's what children should do. Meanwhile, my brother Brandon never held a steady job. While I worked overtime to send money home, he lived comfortably without responsibility or contribution. My parents knew, but they never corrected it. They told me, "You're more capable. Help him out." It did. For years in silence, until I found out they left all assets, the house, the savings, the insurance, to him in their will. I wasn't even mentioned, except for one line saying, they loved both children equally. A hollow line for someone who carried the weight without complaint. I don't resent them for choosing to leave everything to Brandon. I simply refuse to continue playing the role of the invisible supporter. I didn't abandon my family. I just refuse to keep being used. If anyone reading this still thinks I'm ungrateful, imagine being in my shoes. You can give. You can sacrifice. But would you accept being treated like nothing more than a walking wallet forever? Hit post. Then I closed my laptop, poured myself a glass of water, and sat quietly. Messages from friends and distant relatives started pouring in. An aunt wrote, "Your post made me cry. I saw it all but never dared say anything." A high school friend messaged. Finally, someone said what so many of us have lived through. I didn't need their defense. I just felt the power of my own voice, not to fight, but to end the silence that made others believe my sacrifice was automatic. If they chose to tell only their version of the story, I would tell the part they refused to see, the truth I had carried alone for so many years. My post spread faster than I expected. People I hadn't heard from in years were the first to reach out. A former coworker wrote, "I was also the dependable child. Thank you for saying what so many have been too afraid to admit." A distant cousin sent a long message, sharing that she had seen the favoritism in my family for years, but stayed silent out of fear of being labeled nausea. Several old friends from high school also reached out with words of encouragement, saying they were proud of me for speaking up. On the other hand, my parents continued posting cryptic messages. My father wrote, "We lost the daughter who was once our pride, all because she got too busy with her success to remember where she came from." My mother posted an old photo of the three of us, captioned, "Some things only live on in memories. We forgive, but we don't forget." As for Brandon, he wrote, "Family is a place for forgiveness, not keeping score. It's sad when some people only see numbers instead of love." I didn't respond. I didn't feel the need to anymore. Not because I was bitter, but because I no longer craved their acknowledgement. The truth was out. Whoever wanted to understand would understand, and whoever chose to believe their version could keep believing it. I didn't post anything else. No rebuttals, just silence. But not the old kind of silence, not the resigned, hurt silence. This was a peaceful, grounded quiet. The kind that comes when you finally untie yourself from a role you never chose. Month later, I moved into a new apartment, smaller, near the Willamette River. It wasn't fancy, but the east-facing windows caught the morning sun, and the soft sound of water helped me sleep peacefully every night. I also started writing again, something I hadn't done in nearly 10 years, buried under spreadsheets, bank accounts, and other people's bills. On evenings without emergency calls or desperate money requests, I sat at my desk and wrote about silence, about awkwardness, about letting go. I learned to say no to things that drained me, from unnecessary social obligations to relationships that only showed up when they needed something from me. I no longer feared the word selfish. I had lived too long under a distorted version of generosity, and now I chose to love myself. I kept a few old friendships, the ones who had stood by me when all I had was responsibility. We met up on weekends, strolled through the park, and talked about little things, things that had nothing to do with debts or family duties. And strangely, I felt lighter. One evening in late fall, while walking along the river, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, "Oriana." I recognized the voice immediately. It was my mother. She paused for a few seconds, then said, "I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just want to know, are you doing okay?" I said nothing at first. A part of me softened, but I knew forgiveness takes time. Trust doesn't return with a single call. I answered quietly, "I'm living well. But Mom, I need to live my own life, not as a burden bearer, not as a backup plan for someone else." No arguments, no blame, just a soft "I understand." I didn't say I forgive you, but I also didn't hang up. I listened. And sometimes, that's enough to know you're no longer as hurt as you once were. After the call ended, I looked out at the river. The lights reflected off the water like a chain of memories being set free. I knew I still had healing to do with myself, with the past, but at least now, I would no longer walk forward on trembling legs weighed down by guilt. I would move forward with the steady steps of someone who knows they deserve love, real love. My story isn't just about favoritism or will. It's about reclaiming self-worth after years of being trapped in the role of the responsible child. I realized that true filial love doesn't mean unconditional sacrifice, and real family doesn't demand the loss of your personal freedom. By letting go of the role I was forced into, I found peace and learned to love myself, keeping only relationships built on genuine respect, not exhausting obligation. What do you think about Oriana's choice? Was she too harsh or was it necessary to truly find herself?